Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and in today's video, I'm continuing the NBA season preview series, this time talking about the Golden State Warriors, who should be one of the most interesting teams in the entire league this upcoming season, with a lot of their better players returning from injury and a group that has championship experience with plenty of talent as well that missed the playoffs last year and should figure in heavily into the playoff picture this year, even with the unfortunate injury to Klay Thompson. But quickly before we get started, if you enjoy content like this and consider subscribing, I upload twice a day, every day, all throughout the NBA offseason, so it's a great place for consistent NBA content. You can also leave a like rating on the video as well, helps me out a ton, lets me know that you enjoy the content and get the videos out to more people on YouTube, and you can hang out with me at various socials at the bottom of the screen. And with those things said, let's go ahead and get into what I always start with these season previews, and that is the rotations. So I always tell people, don't get too worked up about who is or isn't in the starting lineup. You can mix and match these things pretty much however you want. And for me, if you're looking at a five-man group for Golden State, it's relatively clear. You go Steph, you go Kelly Oubre, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, James Wiseman in the starting group, and then Kevon Looney, Brad Wanamaker, Eric Paschall, and Jordan Poole. Now, obviously, the first issue here with this group is that this is not a very deep team. Their bench is definitely going to be an issue, specifically from a scoring standpoint, but really just versatility in general. The bench isn't great. Now, one of the ways you could possibly remedy that is by putting Kevon Looney into the starting lineup and then relying on the rookie James Wiseman to provide a bit of a spark offensively off the bench, and have Looney be in there with the starting group that has a bit more offensive firepower. And that way you can kind of, negate some of those issues you have off the bench. But regardless, it's still going to be tough for this team to have a significant amount of depth, which is why the Klay injury was so devastating, because they still could have, in theory, brought in someone like Kelly Oubre in the exact same trade that they made, and then had Klay Thompson as well, and that would have really added to their bench depth. But unfortunately, obviously, that is not an issue for this group. So even with the age of Steph, who's now 32, the age of Draymond, who's now 30 years old, I'm still really intrigued by this team, because there's still a bit of a mystique around this group, Steph specifically, but also this team as a whole, and whatever offensive system they're running in Golden State, because there's this mindset and there's this idea that players generally are going to get better and play better in Golden State than they have in the past. Most specifically, that would relate to Andrew Wiggins, who this team is still curious about what he can provide them moving forward. And then Kelly Oubre would be another name to mention here, as well as a guy that potentially could have a really good year in this Warriors system. And Oubre, by the way, was really good before he got hurt last year anyway. And then we all know about what Wiggins does or doesn't do well. So it's not only about the fact that this team has a championship pedigree. It's not only about the fact that they have a former defensive player of the year and a two-time MVP on their roster. It's not only about, some of the talent they do have on the wings, and then Wiseman is the rookie, but this system that has worked so well for them, especially pre-KD, that I think really makes them such an interesting group as a team that could really elevate the talent that they have on this roster. It's not that they don't have talent, just that they could elevate that talent even further to the point where they could be a real threat in the West this year. Now, I would have been, way more excited about their chances to be like a top 4 team or a contender in the Western Conference had Klay never got hurt, but it's clear that they're still pushing for playoff relevance this year based off of the Kelly Oubre trade and the expense that they're now taking on to having someone like Kelly Oubre on this roster. So for me, there's two ways that this can really go. You can go, really positively when you're looking at this team, or really negatively. So from a positive standpoint, Golden State has, guys, again, that have that championship pedigree. You've got a two-time MVP. You've got a defensive player of the year on the roster. You've got guys that know what it takes to win in the NBA. And if you want to be kind to them, some versatile wings. Someone in Andrew Wiggins that, in theory, ideally, would be a good two-way player, someone that can defend, someone that can do some things offensively, provides this group, that versatility, that athleticism on the wing that they've been missing for a while, obviously, with the exception of someone like Kevin Durant, someone that can be a bit in that like Harrison Barnes mold pre-KD. They can make some shots. They can make something out of Andrew Wiggins, right? Then you've got Kelly Oubre, who is a really good slasher and a guy that can score the basketball well. As long as he's shooting well off the ball, should be a really, really good part of this Warriors team. He's not going to 100% replace what Klay did, because that would just be an impossible expectation, but he should still be really, really good. And then you're counting on the talent of someone like James Wiseman to really step up as a rookie and raise the ceiling of this group even further. And if you want to look at it from a very, very positive perspective, the talent that they have as a whole, at least in the starting lineup, looks like a team that could be a top 4 team in the West as long as everybody stays healthy, as long as Steph gets back to MVP form. He's one of the leading odds guys right now to win the MVP this season. And if you look at it from that perspective, this Warriors team begins to look pretty scary. On the negative side, however, this is definitely a team that is aging. As I said, Steph is 32. Klay is 30. Had he played this year, that would have come into play here. And then Draymond is also 30 years old. And it's a team that, yes, has a championship pedigree, but also has a lot of miles on them for those two guys specifically. And then you can throw Looney in there as well. Teams that just continue to go very deep into the postseason, had a lot of miles on them in that 5-year stretch. And it's worth wondering, it's worth asking if they have anything left, if they're able to, continue to push deeper into the playoffs or get to the playoffs in the first place in what is going to be a really tough Western Conference. And that also relates to their ability to stay healthy, which obviously was one of the issues last season, whether it be Steph or Klay coming into the season hurt, or Draymond, who was dinged up throughout the year, but also looked a little bit washed, which is never a good sign, of course. So at the end of the day, I think the answer for what this team is going to be is probably somewhere in the middle. You can't go too positive, you can't go too negative for this group. They're not going to be a top 4 team, in my opinion, in the Western Conference, just because this is such a tough conference this season. I still think that they're going to be a playoff team, and they're going to be a team that you're going to have to pay attention to. And when we get in the playoffs, I don't think any of the top seeds are going to want to play Golden State. I think Steph is going to have a good year, maybe not a great year. Like I don't actually think of him as that much of an MVP threat at the moment, just because I'm worried about the injury stuff. But I'm interested in whether Wiggins and Oubre can adapt to this new team and fill that Harrison Barnes type role and allow Steph to just do Steph things. And if he can still do that, I think they can still certainly be a very competitive team as it relates to the Western Conference playoffs, but not towards the top of the conference and towards being an actual contender. If Klay was healthy, the answer to that would be much, much different. But I definitely think that this is still a playoff team. So for me right now, I have Golden State as the 6th best team in the Western Conference this upcoming season, just because there are a handful of teams that have proven more recently that they're legit in the Western Conference. Obviously, injuries happen, and it's not that the Warriors did anything wrong. I've seen it more recently, in a handful of teams that I have ahead of them, quite frankly, in the standings. Not that they can't be higher than that or lower than that. That's just where I'm projecting them right now. With the one wild card for this group being the fact that they do still hold that pick in 2021 that's owed to Minnesota, and that Wiggins contract or Oubre, if they wanted to, that they could trade to another team in a possible star trade. So if they start the year out and they're like 20-6 or something, they could certainly look to make a move with that pick to push them even further towards contention in the Western Conference. I'm not anticipating that being the case, because there have been reports that come out basically saying that Golden State really, really values that top pick in 2021 via Minnesota, and I think they've got a pretty good shot of getting that pick, as well as I talked about in the Timberwolves season preview video, where that pick is only top 3 protected, and Minnesota's probably going to finish in like the bottom 4 in the Western Conference, in my opinion. But given how bad the records are likely to be at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, they could very easily walk away with a top 10 pick next year that does not get conveyed in that top 3 area to Minnesota for next year. And that could, again, be used as a trade piece or just to add another really nice rookie in what looks to be a strong 2021 class. We'll kind of see what direction they go there. But for me personally, I'm excited. Like, I really, really want to see the pre-KD Warriors again. They're not going to be the exact same, but just in terms of play style, in terms of movement, in terms of fluidity on the offensive end, and still putting in a ton of effort defensively, I'm really interested to see that again. I would have been way more interested if Klay never got hurt, and that is one of the most upsetting things that's happened all NBA offseason, is the fact that, Klay put in all this work and all this effort to come back from one devastating injury just to experience another one, which is really unfortunate for him. So for me, the Warriors are right there in that 6th seed. They're a dangerous bottom half of the playoff picture team as we get to the postseason, where they would be matching up with a team potentially like Utah or Dallas or the Nuggets or either LA team. And I don't think any of those teams would want to deal with Golden State in the playoffs, given their championship history, given their pedigree. That would be a scary, scary matchup for a lot of different teams. But that's just kind of where I'm at on the Golden State Warriors going into this upcoming season. And that is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen and be on the lookout for more NBA season previews coming up. I'll be covering every single team in the NBA before the start of the season, which is on the 22nd. So we're going to be cranking out some team season preview videos over the next handful of weeks, so stay tuned for those. As I said, my name is Tucker. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.